Hello, everyone. Today, I want to cover one of the important topics that I still see in class that it's kind of a myth. And the idea is that the North was abolitionist, right? So the reality is that the North is not abolitionist. The North is anti-slavery, right? And this is not a technicality, right? There's a significant difference between one and the other. And eventually, when we go to the Civil War, this will become important. All right. So let me explain the differences between anti-slavery and abolitionism. Okay. All right. So yes, the northern states are anti-slavery, right? So what does it mean, guys? There are many ways to be anti-slavery. I'm gonna kind of like summarize them in 3 points. All right. One of them is the way you seek emancipation, right? For the most part, anti-slavery people are looking for gradual emancipation. In other words, they're being practical about it. They're basically thinking immediate emancipation is going to be difficult, so gradual emancipation will be one of the solutions. And gradual basically means, for example, in the North, the way it was happening was that some of the people that were the sons of slavery or daughters of slavery did not inherit the idea of slavery, right? They became indentured servants until a certain age, and then with the idea that slavery is going to die out, right? Or that some of the slaves were being bought by the government and basically freed, right? So, or they were becoming indentured servants rather than slaves, right? So the idea is finding some compromise to gradually eliminate slavery, right? So that's one point. The second point is most of the anti-slavery people seek to limit the expansion of slavery, meaning if it already exists in certain territories, they don't mean it to abolish it outright. They just don't want to keep on expanding. All right, that's very much what Lincoln wanted to do. Most people think of Lincoln as an abolitionist because he's gonna end up abolishing slavery through the 13th Amendment, but Lincoln was more of an abolitionist at heart, but his politics were more about anti-slavery because he was a pragmatist. He was looking for practical solutions to the problem, right? The other, the other idea about anti-slavery is compromises, right? Anti-slavery people are willing to compromise, meaning they're willing to do a sort of deal with the South in one way or another, right? Maybe like you see in the Compromise of 1820, what do you see, the Missouri Compromise, what do you see in the Compromise of 1850? The idea is maybe, finding gradual emancipation, making a deal somewhere other to slowly abolishing slavery, right? So that means to be anti-slavery, right? So the question is, what does it mean to be an abolitionist, right? Abolitionists are all of those things, but more, I don't want to say radical, they're more aggressive towards it, right? Abolitionists, they have two ways that make them different, right? Number one is they don't want any compromises. The way you understand abolitionists is that they're basically thinking, most of them are very religious and they see it as a moral sin, right? They want immediate emancipation, right? They want to abolish it outright because it's wrong, because it's morally incorrect, right? So they're seeking for immediate emancipation, not looking for any compromises because that's the right thing to do, right? But more significantly, the one thing that makes it the most important, guys, is abolitionists, the most extreme of them, are seeking for equality. Because if you think about it, there's a very important distinction between I don't want you to be a slave, but how far do you want to go? Not being a slave versus do you also believe in equality, right? And that gap is very significant, right? That gap is very significant because you see it at the end of the Civil War, right? The 13th Amendment frees slaves, right? But it doesn't mean they're equal. It just means they're not slaves, right? It doesn't mean they're equal under the law, right? So from that time, from 1865 to 1867, from the 13th to 14th Amendment, slaves are seen kind of like in limbo, right? You're not a slave, but you're not a citizen. You're not a slave, but you don't have the same rights as the rest of the people. Now, abolitionists believe that you should be treated the same, right? Equality under the law. Unfortunately, the abolitionist movement was seen as a radical movement at the time, right? It's not, it never makes more than a small percentage of the population of the North, right? Most people in the North are anti-slavery, meaning they don't believe in slavery, but most of them do not believe in equality either. This will become significant in the Civil War when the Emancipation Proclamation happens, when Lincoln makes the war about slavery as a military action. A lot of people don't like it, right? Because they're not willing to go to war for slavery. They don't believe it that strong. They just don't think they should be having slavery, right? So these are the main differences between slavery and abolitionists, and the importance of this distinction, right? Because this is why Lincoln doesn't want to make the war about slavery, right? He understands people will not want to fight. People are not willing to die for the issue of slavery, but they're willing to die for bringing the union together, right? So it's an important distinction. A lot of people actually, quit the army. They quit the military because they don't want to fight for slavery, right? So it's an important distinction, right? If you want to understand it this way, think about anti-slavery people are highlighted by the 13th Amendment, whereas the abolitionists are highlighted by the 14th Amendment, right? It's basically more aggressive towards the idea of slavery. One of them just eliminates it. The other one also brings equality under the law, right? So this is the difference. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be around. Be safe, guys.